The Jersey Shore has announced a new season, but who needs Snooki, Mike, and Paulie when we've got Donald, Chuck, and Nancy? We will analyze our wonderfully entertaining reality TV reality. Then Allie Stuckey, Elisha Krauss, and Jacob Airey join the Panel of Deplorables to discuss new discoveries about the tomb of Jesus. Spoiler alert, it's empty. Why millennials say I feel instead of I think. It's probably because they feel and they don't think. And the latest in Democrat sex scandals. I'm Michael Knowles, and this is The Michael Knowles Show. I am so excited that the Jersey Shore is back. I am as excited as anybody else is. In case you have never experienced this wonderful show, here's a clip.
Ron, what's your mentality going down there? What are you going to do?
We'll have a good time. Get creepy. Be weird.
And what is your name, sir?
Situation.
Huh?
Situation.
Cabs are here!
I finally put some water on my face. I was like, we got grenades, man.
It's hot.
You trying to smush right now?
Oh,
Can I have a roll, please?
Don't worry, you got a couple.
Leave me alone. Get out of my face.
Yo, shut your mouth, you dirty little hamster.
You look like Popeye on crack in my face, jerk off.
Oh, my God. How many guys did you sleep with in 24 hours?
Okay, whatever. That's mature to walk away, too.
Boss seems to think that my hair is gonna fall off and go into the ice cream. This hair ain't moving, my dude. 150 miles an hour on the highway on a street bike doesn't move. What makes you think it's gonna move in a gelato shop?
I love that show so much. I loved it in college. I used to go to the Jersey Shore all the time. When I was a kid, I would go to Wildwood with my family. One time I was at Seaside Heights, also known as Sleeside Heights, visiting a buddy in college, and we went to the house while they were filming. We saw a massive crowd down below because the situation was smoking a cigarette on the balcony. I actually, don't ask me why I know this, I was conceived at the Jersey Shore at Wildwood on the 4th of July of all times. Again, please, I sort of wish I didn't know that. So anyway, I love the show. But do we need it anymore? Do we actually need reality television?
Yes.
I don't know, man, because we have the Swampy Shore. We have the reality TV of one President Donald Trump and the Washington, D.C. that is revolving around him. Plus, we have a great cast of characters that he's given us. It's extremely entertaining. And this should not be surprising at all, because it really does. Politics in 2017, more so than it did previously, more so than we've ever seen in the past. It resembles reality TV because we made the king of reality television president. This guy had a reality TV show, one of the defining reality TV shows on network television for 14 years. It was about him. It starred him. It was about his life and his company. It was basically a game show. So we had these constant celebrities and new characters who came by. This is the culture. I notice all of the people who for years and years have sat at Heritage Foundation lunches and have written in all of the elite publications on the right. They've called for a culture warrior in the White House. We have to wage the culture wars. Everything else is just accounting. And they seem to have had a vision of what that culture warrior would look like, and it didn't look like Donald Trump. So now that he is waging the culture wars, they hate it, and they're saying it's uncouth, and they're running away from him, and they're commiserating with their friends on the left and at the New York Times and in left-wing outlets, and they're saying, oh yes, isn't it so awful? I don't like that guy. He says strange words. But look, I'm for as elite culture as much as the next guy. It actually occurred to me while I was writing this, I was listening to Abjoy et Abjoven Mapais. It's if you listen to chanting or anything on Spotify, you'll see these ridiculous songs that come out of Provençal poetry. But guess what, folks? Provençal poetry is not the culture that we live in. It's a nice culture if you want to read old books and read old poetry and that sort of thing. I'm all for it. I like the opera. I like going to plays. But that isn't the actual culture. And if we have rich Uncle Pennybags become the nominee of the Republican Party and wear a monocle and talk about how great Don Giovanni is or how he only listens to Bach, that doesn't engage in the culture. He might be a well-formed fella, but that isn't the culture that the American people pay attention to. So the NFL, that is the culture. Reality television, that is the culture. And we now have a guy who's constantly talking about the NFL, who's talking about celebrities, who's waging the war where it exists. Now, we have these two characters. We have Chuck and Nancy. But that doesn't take into account my favorite character, which is Pocahontas. We'll get to Pocahontas in a little. Here's what Chuck and Nancy wrote. This morning, Donald Trump tweeted, quote, "Meeting with Chuck and Nancy today about keeping government open and working. Problem is they want illegal immigrants flooding into our country unchecked, are weak on crime, and want to substantially raise taxes." I don't see a deal, don't you? After all of, this is poetic diction. Ben talked about an excellent book by Owen Barfield, Poetic Diction, on his show the other day. This is poetic diction. It offers us so much in just, 3 sentences. He gives us the characters. He gives us the protagonist. That's Donald Trump. This is what I want to do. I want to keep our country open. I want to keep the government working. Then he gives us the antagonists. That's Chuck and Nancy. He doesn't say Senator Schumer and Congresswoman Pelosi, Leader Pelosi. He says it, even puts it in quotes, Chuck and Nancy. You know them. They come through your TV every night. You know them. They're like a sitcom character. They're like a reality television character. He then presents himself not only as the reasonable guy, but he's the innocent guy. It's almost laughable. It is laughable, this tweet, because he's saying, look, this is what I want. I just want these good things for the country, and so I'm going to meet with them today. The only trouble is, the only thing I suspect, this might not go very well, because they're anti-American monsters who want to destroy your country for you, so I don't think there will be a deal, but maybe there will be, right? He presents himself as this perfectly innocent player, and he's forcing them into a corner. They can't come to the meeting now. He's just said that they want to flood this country with criminals and illegal immigrants, that they want to raise your taxes and destroy your country. So he doesn't see a deal, but hey, maybe it'll work out. They can't possibly come. So if they don't come, then it just underscores the narrative. He wants to work together. He wants to reach across the aisle. He wants to do positive work for the country. But these obstructionists among Democrats will not do it. And not only that, but they're humorless. That's the other accusation, that he's constantly implicitly leveling against them. And so what happened? They canceled the meeting. Of course, they had to. And then Sarah Huckabee Sanders sends out a press release and says, the president's invitation to the Democrat leaders still stands, and he encourages them to put aside their pettiness, stop the political grandstanding, show up and get to work. These issues are too important. It was ever thus the minute he wrote this tweet, and now he looks like the adult, which is crazy. He's written the sort of statement from the president that we've never seen before. He's written this, and then, ironically, he's the one who ends up looking like an adult. This is no surprise. This should come as no surprise to us, but many people on the left and the right are constantly scratching their heads. They're saying, what is he doing? How could he be doing this? If only he did something different, then it would all work out great. You got to give this guy a little bit of credit. He has been manipulating people to do what he wants them to do for decades, but he's done it explicitly on television for 15 years. This was his job, was to take regular people, not with a script, not with characters that he's written, regular people that he's met in life, and get them to do what he wants them to do to create entertainment on television. That was truly his job for 15 years. So this brings us to our next character, my favorite one. That would be Pocahontas. Here's Trump yesterday at an event honoring the Navajo Code Talkers.
For the country. So that was the ultimate statement from General Kelly, the importance. And I just want to thank you, because you're very, very special people. You were here long before any of us were here. Although we have a representative in Congress who they say was here a long time ago. They call her Pocahontas. But you know what? I like you, because you are special. You are special people. You are really incredible people, and from the heart, from the absolute heart, we appreciate what you've done, how you've done it, the bravery that you displayed, and the love that you have for your country. Tom, I would say that's as good as it gets.
That is as good as it gets. It was perfectly executed. Those guys don't look too offended. For those of you who aren't watching because you haven't subscribed, go over and subscribe. But if you're just listening, when he says Pocahontas, they're smiling a little, they're laughing a little. They're not taken aback and saying how awful this is. And by the way, Pocahontas wasn't Navajo. Pocahontas wasn't Cherokee, as Elizabeth Warren lying said that she was, but he's mocking her. He's mocking her in this moment. Why? Because it's a little aside. He's honoring these guys at an event. He's obviously heaping praise on them, and then he gets his little joke in there. Why? Why is he mocking Elizabeth Warren? Elizabeth Warren deserves to be mocked. Elizabeth Warren pretended to be a Native American Indian. She is as white as can be. I am far swarthier than Elizabeth Warren ever could possibly be, even, during the summer in the sun. And Elizabeth Warren didn't just say that she was Native American Indian on job applications. She didn't just talk about it in her life. She submitted a recipe to a cookbook called Pow Wow Chow. It doesn't get much more egregious than that. She is prostituting her fake ancestry, clearly for career benefit. But Donald Trump is the one who's offensive by making this joke and pointing it out. By the way, this event would not have been covered by the press had he not made that remark. He knows that. That's why he made the remark. We wouldn't have seen wall-to-wall coverage of the Navajo Code Talkers Honor Summit had he not made this line. So like catnip, the press can't resist. And once again, what are we talking about? We're not talking about Bob Mueller. We're not talking about Russia. We're talking about how Elizabeth Warren is a liar, and this clearly white woman pretended to be a Native American to further her career. So how did Warren respond? I think you guessed it.
It is deeply unfortunate that the President of the United States cannot even make it through a ceremony honoring these heroes without having to throw out a racial slur. Look, Donald Trump does this over and over, thinking somehow he's going to shut me up with it. It hadn't worked in the past. It is not going to work in the future.
It's a racial slur. Didn't you know that Pocahontas is a racial slur? Did you know that, Marshall? Yeah. I don't know. In my PC training, there were a lot of slurs that I was told not to say. Pocahontas wasn't one of them, because Pocahontas was a Native American Indian from the Northeast of America, and also a Disney cartoon. So it's not a racial slur. And Ann Coulter once gave me tremendous advice. The first time I met her when I was in college, we were talking about how all the crazies at college would call you racist for saying that we ought to have lower taxes and less government in our lives. And she said, Michael, when a liberal calls you a racist, you've won the argument. And that's true. She has no argument here. She can't answer for her fraud, for her decades of fraud. So what she has to do, she looks ridiculous in every sense of that word. To think that she is like Pocahontas, which she claimed to be, is ridiculous. It makes you laugh. It makes you laugh at her. But she can't laugh. She is humorless. It reminds me of that meme that was going around of Sandra Fluke, who has her arms crossed. She was that Democrat contrivance who took the sacramental view of birth control. She had her arms crossed and frowning, and it said, "That's not funny." That's what Elizabeth Warren looks like. She seems like a scold. She seems humorless. How did that work for Hillary Clinton? He's forced her into this corner to make her deeply unlikable. Not that I'm saying she wasn't unlikable before, but Donald Trump is making her look even more unlikable. And by the way, she says that he's doing this to shut her up. No, he isn't. He's doing it to get her on TV and to make her look as humorless as she is. He isn't shutting her up at all. It isn't to shut her up. It's to make her look ridiculous, which she is. You see this played out too yesterday. There was that drama at the CFPB. Speaking of Elizabeth Warren, the board, the Consumer Financial so-called Protection Bureau that Elizabeth Warren promoted and helped to create, even before she was a member of the Senate. The drama that happened at the CFPB is that the director resigned. He named his deputy, a woman named Leandra English, to take over, but he has no authority to do that. The president can name the head of his executive agencies. So instead of formally nominating somebody and taking care of this in paperwork, basically, what Donald Trump was he named an interim director, Mick Mulvaney, his budget director, to walk down there with a bag of Dunkin' Donuts and take over the office. Why did he do it this way? He could have handled this much more quietly. Why did he have to send down a person? Well, if he had found some boring bureaucratic solution on paper to do this, then it might have taken care of this particular problem, but it wouldn't have pointed out that this issue of the CFPB and all of these godless, headless executive agencies is not a boring bureaucratic problem. I had the privilege of meeting Antonin Scalia. We asked him what the greatest threat to liberty was in the United States. He said it's these agencies, these executive agencies who have no accountability, certainly to Congress, and in this case, apparently not to the president. So he sent down a person, Mick Mulvaney, an outspoken critic of this agency, to have human drama, two heads, two directors of the agency duking it out, total catnip for the press, and we get to see this issue brought into stark relief. Does a legitimately elected president, sent there by the American people, does he have the right to run his own executive agencies, or is some bureaucrat holdover who thinks that she knows better how to run your life than you do, who thinks she knows better how to run your government than you do, is she the one who should do it? It's a beautiful human drama. It pits people who represent different groups. And, there was a commentator I can't remember, I couldn't find his name today. There was a commentator in 2016 who predicted that Trump would win because we want to keep watching the show. We can't turn off this reality TV show. We want to see season 2. America just wouldn't be able to help itself. A lot of people on the left and the right are saying Trump is doing horrible and he should abandon Twitter, or Trump is doing fine but he should abandon Twitter. And Twitter is the key. Humor is the key. This isn't just bread and circuses, by the way. We're seeing a lot of great stuff happen in the federal government. We're seeing massive deregulation. An annual 13,000 regulations passed every single year by the federal government for the last 20 years. This year, 0 net new regulations. Massive deregulation at the EPA. Scott Pruitt has been doing an excellent job. Judge Gorsuch, a supremely good nominee, and now Supreme Court Justice. A ton of other judges have been nominated. Some have been confirmed. The humor has been really a great way to accomplish political goals. And rather than encouraging Trump to abandon all of that covfefe, we should encourage him to keep it up. This has been an immense help to him, and the show must go on, folks. We don't want to turn this show off. So to continue to discuss reality television, I have to bring on our excellent panel of deplorables. But before we do, and we have a great panel today, we have Allie Stuckey, we have Elisha Krauss, the Daily Wire Zone, we have Jacob Airey. All right, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. But before we do that, we have to make a little money, folks. We have to tell you about a great help to your holiday season. Winter is coming, and one way to keep the lights on here and also to keep the lights on in your head and actually learn something, to digest a lot of the information and commentary that you want to digest, is this great app called Texture. So Texture is a way, I read magazines. I used to subscribe to all the print magazines, but that's very expensive and they just clutter up your coffee table, and it's kind of hard to work through. Instead, there's this great app which is called Texture. Whether you're looking for dependable political reporting, high quality storytelling, culture, entertainment, all of the above, you don't only have to listen to this podcast. You should probably be reading magazines as well. They deliver it all with beautiful writing, excellent prose that you don't always find on just the news websites that we're all constantly consuming. And you can get it all in one place. It gives you access, Texture, to unlimited access to over 200 premium magazines. It has leading titles: Time, The Atlantic, The New Yorker, Vanity Fair, Wired, The National Review. Right now you can try that app for free. It's especially good around the holiday season. I love nothing more than to cuddle up next to my Christmas tree with those gigantic incandescent bulbs. You know, the ones that almost set your tree on fire, and it just feels warm. It feels like you're snuggled up, and just read. I do it every night, and Texture is a really great way to do it. If you subscribe to all of these magazines, it would cost you a ton of money. But right now, imagine having it all anywhere, anytime, just right on your mobile device. If you want to start your free trial, which I recommend, go to texture.com/Knowles. That's Knowles, just like Beyonce, texture.com/Knowles. If you choose to continue, podcast listeners will get the whole thing. For how much? How much would you pay for this, Marshall? That's a lot. I mean, you don't read, but if you read, you'd have to subscribe. What is it? Every month it's $5 to $15 for any magazine. If you want to get unlimited magazines, what would that be? $1 million, $1 jillion? No, sirree, Bob. $9.99 a month. This is a really good deal, and especially it's a great deal to try it for free, which you should all do right now. That's 30% even off of Texture's listed price. Great gift options available for that loved one in your life this holiday season. Texture.com/Knowles to start your free trial today. That's, what is it, Marshall?
Texture.com/Knowles.
You got it. You got it. See, he's learning. Maybe we'll get him a trial. Marshall will read. We'll discuss our reading together. Go do it, and let me know what you think of it, because I think it's really excellent. All right, let's get into we have a lot of excellent topics to discuss today. Let's begin with Allie. Allie, will anybody watch the New Jersey Shore, or has politics made reality TV completely irrelevant?
Oh, I don't know if it's politics making Jersey Shore relevant. I think it was probably already like that much before Donald Trump. I mean, I never watched this stuff, Michael Knowles. It seems like you might be an expert.
You're much higher brow than me.
Yes, I am. No, I never watched it. I watch other much more sophisticated reality shows like The Bachelor and The Bachelorette that, things like Jersey Shore, they're just beneath me. What can I say?
That makes perfect sense. On this reality TV show that we have in front of us, the Trump show, the Swampy Shore, Elisha, which is racist? Because Elizabeth Warren says calling her Pocahontas is racist.
Mm-hmm.
What is more racist? To call Elizabeth Warren, a white woman who isn't Native American, Pocahontas, or for Elizabeth Warren to pretend to be a Native American Indian and write a recipe for a book called Pow Wow Chow?
Yeah, that was a crab recipe. Hailing from Oklahoma, southeastern Oklahoma specifically, there are no crabs there. We do have crawdads, though.
Those mud bugs are way grosser than crabs.
And she also hailing from Oklahoma. I guess she needs to apologize where she was raised because it's, stands for Land of the Red People. It's like ridiculous. It's like legitimately, Pocahontas was somebody's name, and I like, it was cringeworthy yesterday when Trump said this in front of these American heroes that are probably pushing 100, let's be honest, but it's Trump. Like, I mean, that's just him, and the CNN and MSNBC wall-to-wall coverage about how he was racist is just, it's beyond.
It is beyond. And those guys, I mean, you point out they are probably like 100 years old at this point. They seem to get a kind of a kick out of it. They smiled. They didn't clutch their pearls.
I mean, come on. It was awkward smiles, though.
Well, that's the thing I notice about this administration is it's always awkward smiles because you can't predict any of this stuff. You remember in 2012 when Clint Eastwood came to the RNC and he talked to an empty chair. And he just gave a ad-libbed a speech to an empty chair. And a lot of people, it was very cringy. We didn't know what to do. Jon Stewart said he loved it. Jon Stewart said he loved it because it was unscripted. It wasn't the usual glossed over, scripted political convention we see. It was a little awkward and a little weird, and you just, I don't know, to me, maybe it's like a car wreck, but you can't help but watch it. Jacob, the Jersey Shore, you might not have watched it, I certainly did, and I believe it was Vinny on the Jersey Shore said that things were going to get filthy, creepy, and weird. That's how it defines itself. Certainly politics these days is filthy, creepy, and weird, what with all of the sex scandals and whatnot. Is there any way to add a little dignity to either our television, our popular culture, and our politics, or are we just on a straight train to decadence?
I think we're on a straight train to decadence.
That's fine.
I think that I'm sorry to be a killjoy here, but I don't think the train ride is going to get any smoother. It's going to be bumpy all the way. And by the way, boiled crawdads are way better than crabs. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
That statement is a nice way to typify how everything you say, like the opposite is true. That we shouldn't trust any of your opinions.
Hey, I grew up Cajun. I grew up on crawdads, but
those things are so gross.
Anyway, well, the peeling of them is gross, but once you actually get them in your mouth, it's delicious.
Michael, you're such a New England elitist. Get over yourself.
By the way, this is how I feel about Trump. The peeling of it is gross. The kind of watching it the first time, even the voting, you're like, this is kind of, I don't know. But then once you're in there, oh man, it's so delicious. That covfefe is great. Okay, we have a lot more to talk about, but if you don't subscribe to thedailywire.com, I can't help you, pal. I guess you can listen to it on iTunes or something. But if you want to watch the rest of this show and help us keep the lights on, we really appreciate it to all of our current subscribers. It really helps us out. Do that right now. You go to dailywire.com. What do you get? You get no ads on the website. That's pretty big. There are so many ads on every website these days. That's a big deal. You get me, you get the Andrew Klavan Show, you get the Ben Shapiro Show. Yeah, I get it. Guys, Christmas season is coming up. It's the holidays. It's the holiday season. You could get your very own Leftist Tears tumbler. Now, I would say this makes a great stocking stuffer, but that's not true. It would make a great main only gift to any of your loved ones, but I know you're not going to give it to anybody. You're going to keep it for yourself, as you should. This season, the tears are pouring. That excellent vintage, that Native American powwow vintage of Elizabeth Warren's Pocahontas tears, that is filling up vessels left and right. You are going to need this Leftist Tears tumbler. Otherwise, you're going to drown in those tears. They can be hot, they can be cold. They're always salty and delicious. So go over to dailywire.com right now. We'll be right back.